So for Module 3, go ahead and download the two zip files that you'll find in the learning module for week 3. Download it somewhere and then go ahead and expand each zip file so that it opens up into these two folders. And if you notice under the messages folder, you're going to see the source code for that folder, and then under multi-threads, you're going to see these two Java files. And then what we want to do next is let's create a brand new folder and let's call it Module 3. Now this is where we're going to keep our source code. So you're going to take the messages folder and drag it and paste it inside Module 3 so that it's moved inside of Module 3. So if you expand Module 3, you should be able to see the messages folder. Do the same thing with the multi-threads folder, so that now it's right below the Module 3 folder. Now, keep in mind that this is the location where you're going to import it into the NetBeans project. So now let's go into NetBeans and import these folders into the project. So now let's go ahead and try importing the source code into NetBeans. So let's go ahead and open up NetBeans. Click on New Project from File. Click on Java with Ant and select Java project with existing sources. Click the Next button right there. In project name, first you want to browse to where the actual Module 3 folder is. So click on that, open, and then in the project name, go ahead and type in Module 3. That's going to be our project name. And let's go ahead and click Next. Now here we want to add the messages and multi-thread folders, right? Those two that have the source code in them. So go ahead and select both folders and then click on Open, and those folders are selected now. Click on Next and you will see the source code in the next screen. So these are the source files. You want to make sure all of them are there, and then go ahead and press the Finish button. In a few seconds, you will see that a project is created right there on the left navigation panel. So if you open up the source packages folder, this is where the messages folder lives. So those are the source code files from the messages folder. The multi-thread folder has the two Java files that were under the multi-threads. So if you take a look at messages client and messages server, so the way this works is that the message server is going to be waiting for messages from the client. So let's take a look at the client first. There's the main method. So this is where the client is going to run to post messages. And the server also has a main method because it's going to now listen to messages being sent by the client. So now there's the thread list. The thread list creates a list and categorizes threads. For our purposes, we're not going to worry too much about this, but this is where that source code is, as you can see. And now let's take a look at how to run this stuff. Okay, so now let's try running our Module 3 program. Before we do that, we need to open up the output window. So go to Windows and click on Output, and you'll notice this little panel opens up. Now this is where all of your output is going to be. So now let's go to our source code here, and the first thing we need to do is make sure that our client server and the thread lister are run. But before we do that, we need to compile and build the entire Module 3 project. So click on Compile and Build, and you're going to see this message in the output window. It's very important that you see the Build Successful message. Make sure you see that. That indicates that your compilation was good and everything is now compiled into a class. So now let's go and run our server first, right? Because that's the piece that's going to receive messages. So let's go ahead and click on Run File to run the server. And you're going to notice in the output window, down below, if you look there, it's actually running the server at the moment. So now the server is waiting. So now we need to go to the client and start configuring the client to send a message to the server. So you click on message client, click on run there from the menu and select set project configuration and go to customize. And make sure the main class says message client. If it doesn't, then you need to click on the browse button right there and make sure you select message client and then click to close that window. In the arguments, we're going to put a message, something very simple that says something like maybe hello. So you type that in and then you click OK. And what we need to do next is to run the client. So you click on that play button up there that you see, and that'll begin the run, and you will notice that you end up with the number 5 and a 0. The 5 just indicates that there were 5 characters in the message. That's what the server is actually receiving. So if you go to set project configurations, customize, and you notice right there, the word hello is basically, your 5-character message that you printed out. So what we need to do now is click on the thread lister. Let's take a look at how the thread lister works. The only thing we need to worry about here is when you run thread lister, it shows you all of the threads that it generated. For this course, that's not important to understand, but just know that it's there and that's what it looks like. So let's go to customize the client again and send a different message, maybe hello there or something like that. Now, if you're going to have 2 words with a space in between, you have to enclose it in double quotes. If not, you're going to run into issues. So we have hello there and a couple of exclamation marks with a space in between. Now, frankly, that's about 10 characters. It doesn't count the exclamation marks as characters. So you got hello there. Those are literal alpha characters. And if you run, you'll notice that it's 10 because you got hello and there. So those are your 10 characters right there. So if you look at the customize window and you look at your message, there's hello, so that's 5 characters, and there, that's another 5. So that's basically how it's going to generate the character count, and that's what the server and client is going to do. Now, if you look at the server, it's going to send these 2 lines indicating that it received a text message from the client. And then there's your thread list that shows you all the lists of threads and categories that it created. Now let's go ahead and stop the server. So if you click on the stop button right there, you'll notice it says build stop. So that's basically just stopped your application right there. Now let's take a look at how to package all this and send it, export it so that it's sent to the instructor. Let's take a look at what's been happening in the background. So if you go back to Windows Explorer or the Finder menu in Macs, go back to Module 3 and see there are your 2 folders, the messages and the multi-threads. This is where we had imported all of our project files. And if you look at the dist folder, it's called distribution. This is where it compiles the entire project into what is called a jar file. And the build directory, specifically the classes build directory under build, that's where all of your Java code is compiled. So when you did the compilation and you got a successful build, that's where everything ends up. So make sure you open up your Module 3 and make sure all of this looks exactly like that. So let's take a look at how to export this project. So what you do is you go back into NetBeans, click on File, and then go to Export As. So from the menu, click on File, Export Project to Zip, and make sure you go browse to the location where your Module 3 project folder is located. And once you find it, you want to make sure you give the zip file a name. So you want to call it module3 underscore and then your first name underscore last name, like I'm doing here. And the important part is make sure you give it an extension of .zip, .zip. That's very, very important for this to be successful. Make sure it's in the folder, in the directory where your project is at. And make sure the build zip has the complete path to your zip file that you just named and created. And just click on export. And you will notice that it creates a module3 underscore 2 folder. That's a bug, so don't worry about that. NetBeans does that. They haven't fixed it yet. But what you want to look at is the zip file. So make sure that zip file has been created and is down there. You can get rid of the folder that was created and then just send and just submit the zip file. Make sure it has the .zip extension and just go ahead and submit that. And that should take care of that. Thanks.